So, what do you look for in a relationship? Do you look for the quality of your relationship and you want a deep, profound relationship with someone? Or is it about the numbers and how you look, your image? Do you um, want that person to accept you? Do you accept yourself? What thoughts linger in your mind about relationship? What myths do you have out there? What expectations do you have? And so this is Timika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. And we've been talking about the concept of relationship and what that means. And I've been sharing what my thoughts on the three levels that I believe, the three main levels of relationship. One of them being the relationship with the divine source, the spirit, what you believe that created the galaxies, the universe, the mountains, and the separation of the waters and the dry land, and how how Earth and the different planets, how they set. Who created all that? Who created you, your body, your heart, that everything that works without your conscious pulling, the handle, the trigger. Okay, heartbeat. Okay, lungs expand. So relationship with the divine, and then relationship with yourself, because how you treat yourself is going to be directly related to what you believe you are. This ever present, this infinite source, this all knowing, everywhere, all powerful source, and who you are. Do you believe you are just from the dirt? Do you believe that you have the spirit, this that you are a microcosm, representation of this um, larger spirit? And then three, how you treat other people. And so last week, the last few weeks, I've been talking about the first two, and today again the latter. How we treat ourselves is basically a direct reflection of how we treat others, is a direct reflection of how we treat ourselves, what we think about ourselves, and what we think about this spirit. So it's not so much if you see somebody out on the street and they are really, having a hard time, that maybe they're crossing the street and they're just cursing and so much hatred, that you feel that the tension and energy that's coming from them. It's not so much about what they think about you if they're spewing these words to you, but it's what they think about themselves, right? How they treat themselves and what they think about this world, this spirit. Do they think it's a dangerous place? Do they think everything evil happens to them? And that's where we're getting to when we talk about creative generational love cycles. We're getting to the root of our actions, the thoughts that have been cultivated inside of our hearts, that fertile ground. And often when we are young, and those mental constructs that develop as a result of those thoughts as they develop in our minds. So our hearts feed our minds through the nervous system, which are the veins, the vines that lead up to the brain. And it's not so much of, what you think. Yes, that's important, but it's what you're growing inside of you. And so it starts with who we think we are. It starts with this power. It starts with how daily we treat ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. Do we pray? Do we meditate? Do we clean ourselves? Do we cook healthy foods? Do we make sure we get activity, some sort of moving in? How we feel about ourselves, because we always want to look for the external. We want to look for the right diet. We want to look for the right exercise routine. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I believe that everything, including medicine, will help us to get to this divine presence that we have in us and realize that I have everything I need inside of me, that there is a knowing inside of me that knows the right food, that knows the right exercise, that knows the right friends, the right words to say, the right actions to do. When should I read? When should I pray? If I'm reading the Bible, the Quran, whatever it may be, that is lifting me up every single day that is reminding me of this spirit that I am, that's reminding me of my purpose, which is utilizing my genetic code, my human genetic code, mixing it with my spiritual code and bringing my abilities, gifts, and talents through that, right? And so it's understanding that, understanding who you are, that begins to feed how we treat other people. Do we see people as a nuisance? Do we see people beneath us? And I'm sure you've heard in the news, you've heard, even leaders, talk about people in a really negative way. But it's not so much the people that they're talking about, but it's how they feel about themselves and what they believe they're here to do. So it's those underlying thoughts, those underlying beliefs. And when you see it that way from a spiritual perspective, you're not so much angry towards the person. You may of course, want them to change, but it becomes more of a curiosity. It becomes more of a compassion. It becomes more of an empathy that I develop as I begin to unfold the truth of the matter. It's not that you take the pain personally, because it is impersonal. Pain looks to present itself. It looks for everyone to know it. The whole saying that misery loves company, it wants everyone to know it. It wants to come out. And when it comes out, it is often blinded, that it's not so much of, I'm going to target you. And it does look for those that are susceptible to its message, that it really feels like it can make a big impact on. But it also sometimes too is that pain just unleashes itself. We allow it to unleash into people, on people. When we think about abuse, when we think about neglect, when we think about domestic violence as a form of abuse, neglect, when we think about slander, it's a matter of insecurities. It's a matter of low self esteem, low self worth. Because if you really believe that you're worthy, if you really believe that you are this human clothed, the spirit clothed in human form, and you believe that others are the same, then how you treat them is going to be closely to how you treat yourself. So, how can a person say, I love myself, and they have all these cars and have these houses, but they demean others? They spew out venom to other people. There is a scripture that says that out of the heart, the mind speaks, the mouth speaks. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So, when you think about that, are you really love? Because when we look at the definition of love, and I love the definition in the Bible, and that's one that I try to meditate on daily, and it reminds me I need to meditate on that today. But that love is patient, it is kind, right? It is not self-seeking, it does not boast, it does not dishonor others. And if we hold tight in our standards about what love is, then we're going to express it, and we're going to look for it. We're going to expect it, because it's all in, when we think about our relationships, it's all about our thoughts, these thoughts that we are cultivating, what we are attracting, not only to ourselves, but what we're actually putting out into the world. If we are fearing violence, if we are fearing abuse, if we're fearing robbers, if we're fearing slander, then often, it is noted in the book of Job, that what I fear the most, I am now experiencing. So we have to remember, this whole concept of thoughts and how we're so powerful. And it brings me back to, as the Bible in the book of Genesis, and how God spoke to this energy that is so alive, and how our thoughts, and we as we were like antennas, and we put thoughts out there. The thoughts that we take in and we cultivate inside of our garden, we put it out there, and it comes to fruition. And the more we think about, here's the what we need to look at. The more we think about the negative things that people are saying, the more we are intentionally and often unconsciously putting that into the universe. because our individual consciousness affects collective consciousness. How does that affect our relationships? Because we tend to attract what we think about the most. And people can say, well, I was abused, I was neglected, and I didn't ask for this. Well, if you're constantly rehashing through nightmares, through daymares, where you're constantly having those thoughts, you are bringing that more to you. It's coming in different forms. And so that's why it's so important when they say that forgiveness, it helps you out. It's really for you. It is, because the more you hold on to grudges, the more you hold on to unforgiveness, the more that you hold on to the past and the pain, the more that you're bringing it to yourself. And so when it says know thyself, when it says, Socrates, when a life that is not examined is not truly living, an unexamined life is not worth living. We have to look at that. I'm not too sure how I feel about the latter part of that saying, but I think it speaks to the importance of really spending time with yourself, which I encourage my children as we have moved around, and they've lost some connection with the friends that they had. This is an opportunity for you to really get to know what you like and what you don't like. When we think about peer pressure, when we think about bullying, we think about those unresolved feelings and emotions, how I believe time with yourself, because I've been there, after experiencing domestic violence with my, being raised in that environment for a few years, being raised by a single parent, African American with a high school education, desires to do more, having my body misused, that I had time. And where I live in Eagle Park, that I had time to really seek this divine presence, that I knew I needed something to help me not to go through what I had been through. And not only that, but to give me the tools to understand this generational cycle of pain and how to overcome it, how to help others transcend it. And it really boils down to thoughts. It really boils down to, again, what we think about what we're here to do. And I believed in my heart of hearts that we were not here to struggle. We were not here to struggle with disease and to struggle with self, pity and feeling worthless, and to just be lost in the world. But we are to come back, as in the prodigal son, to come back, the prodigal son, to come back to the essence of who we are, the spirit. And it's like, if we think about, this feedback loop, how what we think of ourselves, how we treat ourselves, and how we treat others. It's a time for reassessment. If we feel like we're attracting people that are in our lives that are not, that are not treating us as we want to treat ourselves, we have to look at ourselves and see, okay, what message am I putting out there? Am I putting more of a passivity? Am I just wanting friendship for numbers? I think about quality versus quantity. Do I just want the numbers? Do I just want the image that I look like I have a lot of friends, that I look like that I'm loved? And deep inside, these relationships are only masking how I really feel about myself, the self-hatred, the I'm not good enough, the um, that I'm not worthy of true, deep relationships where I can feel there is an even keel of conversations, not kill, but an evenness of conversations, an evenness. My mother nickname is Keel, she was from Mississippi, but an evenness of talking to one another and really feeling like the relationship matters. It's emotionally feeling, it's spiritually feeling and edifying, and you feel like that there is a spiritual alignment that's going on. Now, granted, people can be sent in your lives, or you could be sent in other people's lives that need that spiritual maturity that you have, that alignment that you have. And it's all about discerning. It's discerning. It's about all about setting your standards too. That if you want to be my friend, and I told my daughter when she was on the bus, when she was going to public school in Illinois, that she realized that her the person she was developing a friendship with started messing with her, like the boys on the bus were messing with her. The other girls were messing with this other girl. So Kayla, my daughter, felt like, Mom, she is doing to me what the others are doing to her. And I said, this is the moment of stop and realization and being firm in your conversation, that if you desire to be friends with me, then you will treat me with respect. You will stop doing what you're doing. And Kayla she kind of looked at me. She said, Mom, I should say that. I said, yes. I said, you tell her if she wants to be friends with you, she needs to stop what she's doing and treat you with respect. And so my daughter said she told her that, and she said she stopped. And it's a matter of when we shine our lights on how we want to be treated, then we help people to find the light within them. We help them to see, we can start that really good domino effect where they're like, no, I deserve better. And it becomes it comes from the point of knowing what you stand for and who you are. And what would that do to the numbers of cyberbullying? What would that do to teenage suicide if our children spent more time knowing themselves, more time writing what they like, more time talking about incidences, even if they didn't happen to them, but parents being more open to listening to what's going on in the school environments. We're hearing about shootings, we're hearing about bullying, we're hearing about students doing this to teachers, bullying teachers, calling them outside their name, making lewd comments, even touching teachers inappropriately, or teachers being in an inappropriate relationship with students. What would we do if we really got to our mind and really allowed opportunities to unfold those thought seeds that come from the outer into the inner, and to unfold them and really make sense of them and really use that insight, that discernment that we naturally have inside of us, to pull up, to bring up, to root up, not to root up, but to bring up those spiritual powers that we have innate, that we have been given. Scientists, there's words that we are not using. We're only using like what, 10%, 15% of our brain. And the brain is, I believe, the connection to divine spirit. So it's like daily trying to figure out how to utilize these powers that we innately have to bring about the life, the abundant life, the prosperous life that we are supposed to have, that we are greater, that if we believe in whatever we believe in, that it will come true. That if we believe in miracles and superpowers and spiritual powers, that's what they are. If we really believe in them, that we can make it happen, that we can restore our health, that we can restore life, that we can, through forgiveness, through love, that we can make this world a better place. That what if we start changing towards that, to help our children bring out the spiritual powers that they have, that whatever we do, whatever we teach, we know as adults, as parents, we reinforce within ourselves, whether it's hatred, whether it's love, whether it's passivity, whether it's empowerment, whether it is spiritual, lack of spirituality to spiritual powers, embracing and nourishing and expressing that in life. What if we did that? And so it is so important that when we look at relationships, when we look at people, we don't take the pains personally. We know there is a discrepancy. There are holes in the foundation of that person that need to be addressed. And I truly believe in the power of prayer, and praying for our leaders to see the truth, praying for them to experience the oneness that we all are, to see that truth, that the world doesn't have to be what we are currently experiencing. That if we are truly adding to the collective consciousness of the world, the thought seeds that float around, be they violence, be love, be whatever that is, if I can put more love out into the world, how would your lives be? Would you live in fear, or would you live in empowerment and courage, and know that you have the right and the power to change what you are seeing on the outside, because you have changed what you are thinking, what you are sowing, what you are cultivating, what you're harvesting on the inside? This is Tamika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. Normally, I record these on Wednesdays, the seeds we plant, and I just went into a little, had a little issue with that. But I am so thankful for the opportunity to share truths, to share thoughts, to hopefully bring us together as we should be, and to create a generational love cycle all around the world.